In this week of the NHL, the Eastern Conference wildcard race is going to come down to the wire, with nearly every team still having a chance to sneak into playoffs. But which teams have the best shot of making a run if they get in? Minnesota Wild forward Ryan Hartman receives a 10-game sussy for this hit on Ottawa forward Tim Stützle. Is the league trying to send a message about violence with these latest suspensions? We'll talk about it. The New York Islanders are finally winning games, but now they'll have to do it without their best player, who's potentially going to be out with a long-term injury. The Utah Hockey Club continue to search for a name, but are they going in the wrong direction after these latest images were revealed? The Buffalo Sabres are the laughingstock of the league after not responding to this hit on Tage Thompson, and let's break down the top 5 teams as a part of my power rankings for this week in the NHL. What's up, you beauties? Welcome back to the channel. Before we get into all of the news from this week, we are just around the corner from hitting 20,000 subscribers here on this channel, which is just crazy to think about. So if you guys want to see more fun and engaging hockey content like this, make sure you hit that like button now and subscribe to the channel. With all that being said, let's get into this week's news, beginning with the Eastern Conference wildcard race. Now, this is the current picture for the wildcard, and realistically, every team on this list outside of Buffalo has a chance to get in this year. Now, there really is no correct answer to which team deserves to be in this spot. The only one who you could seriously argue for is Tampa Bay, who right now is the only team on this list that has a plus goal differential, and Columbus, I believe, right now is at a 0, but this will change by the time this recording actually comes out. But regardless, I think this is really just up to personal preference. If there's a roster out there who I think would be the most competitive from this list, it's got to be either Tampa Bay or the Rangers, with the rest of these teams most likely being bounced in the first round if they end up facing teams like Florida or even Washington, who has had such an impressive year. Now, I really just want to hear from you guys on this, since I don't really want to offer up my opinion because who knows what's going to happen. Which of these teams would you like to see get into the playoffs this year? Are you someone who wants to see older teams get in like Boston and New York Rangers? Or would you love to see new teams potentially like Detroit, Columbus, or even Montreal? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below as we go to the next story. Minnesota forward Ryan Hartman was suspended for 10 games by the NHL Department of Player Safety on Monday for using his forearm to violently slam the head of Ottawa Senators forward Tim Stützle into the ice. Now, this is coming off them already losing their best forward, Kirill Kaprizov, and now they're down another forward, and with all of their cap restrictions, this is definitely going to hurt their offense. Despite production from these players, I just don't think that any of this was necessary from Hartman. Obviously, he's a previous offender, so he's going to get a lengthy suspension for this, especially when you consider how violent it was and how it just doesn't need to be a part of the game at all. This leads to another discussion about the league cracking down on violence, and I think this is the perfect example of people overreacting and saying that the league is getting soft, when a play like this just doesn't need to be involved in hockey. When you talk about the Connor McDavid cross-check a few weeks ago, we see that happen a lot because players, they kind of just get emotional in situations, especially with the lead-up that happened between McDavid and Garland, versus this one where you're just down in a game and you can find other ways to motivate your team without going to these dirty areas. So I would love to hear what you guys think about this. Do you think that the league is getting too soft, or do you think that they did a really good job suspending Hartman here for this dirty play? Next up, the New York Islanders have finally put together a winning stretch. They're 8-2-0 in their last 10 at the time of this recording, but unfortunately, they're going to be without their best player, Matt Barzal, who has gone down with an injury that is said to be long-term. Now, this season has been a bit weird for the Islanders. Starting out, they're obviously not taken seriously, going on a pretty big losing streak, and there was nothing that seemed to be going right for this team. Then you hear all of the trade rumors where Paul Mary is set to be moved and Brock Nelson is set to be moved, and now they find themselves back in the wild card where you have to make a decision about what direction this team needs to take. Are you going to sell off of your pieces now that they have a little bit more value, or are you going to give them one final chance to compete for a playoff run? It's a tough situation, but without Barzal, I feel like the answer is clear. You got to move off of some of these players. Noah Dobson needs a new contract, and other players on this team are just getting too old to really compete anymore. I think it's time to strip it down in Long Island, and I really do hope that the Islanders understand this with the Barzal injury. Who knows what their answer is? If Barzal isn't out for too long, I could see them staying with this team and trying to compete for the playoffs, but tough go for the Islanders either way. But I do like seeing a little bit of life from this team because, makes things a little bit more competitive for those final playoff spots. Next up, the search for a name in Utah continues, but this time around, the Utah Hockey Club is getting a little bit of backlash for some of the logos that came out. Now, last week we talked about how the Yeti's name was denied because of a patent issue, and this time around, Utah has come out with 3 final names that they want their fans to vote on. One being the Utah Hockey Club with a Yeti logo, 2 the Utah Outlaws, and 3 the Utah Mammoth. But the logos that they revealed, they're kind of blocky, and even EA Sports came out and was criticizing it for how it was really similar to the custom teams logos that you would find in a video game. Now, I'm not saying that these are terrible, but I do feel like there's some better designs out there. With this guy, the Colonel, coming out with these awesome jersey concepts for the Mammoth that I think would look great on an NHL sweater. Not like controversial news, but it is kind of weird to see what Utah is doing right now. I still don't know which one people are going to vote for, but if I had to pick, I just think that either the Utah Hockey Club with a Yeti logo or the Mammoth is the way to go. But which name do you guys want to see Utah do? I know we talked about it last week, but as this story continues to progress, I still want to hear what the community thinks about this team selecting a name. Next story, the Buffalo Sabres continue to be the laughingstock of the league after Thompson, who was named the NHL second star of the week, was lunging for the puck in the New Jersey zone when Nosen collided with the Sabres leading scorer, and there was literally zero response from his teammates, something that has caught a lot of flack from the NHL community about the culture that exists in Buffalo at the moment. Now, earlier we talked about the close Eastern Conference wildcard race and how just about every team is in the mix right now. And yeah, that's every team but the Buffalo Sabres, who continue to have a disastrous season. If you're a fan of this team and you watched this game or even this clip back and felt any sort of security, then you're fooling yourself. This is just pure embarrassment. Hockey is a sport where you stand up for your players, especially your best players. And to see Tage Thompson go down and just have zero response, to me, that would be enough to change fan bases. I swear that would be my final straw for this team. Now, obviously, Buffalo has some talent on this roster, but I just think they need a shakeup completely of their core. That means either trading Dylan Cousins, potentially trading Owen Power, or again, finding a new head coach, because if Lindy Ruff was brought in to give this team a bit more toughness, he clearly hasn't done a good job at that. I don't know what the answer is going to be in Buffalo, but I think everyone in the hockey community had the same response here, that this was soft and that they needed to do a little bit better in these type of situations. Even the game after, when they play against Columbus, they drop the mitts to start the game like that's going to fix the situation, where it's a completely different scenario and a completely different situation than the one you had before. Your guys' thoughts on Buffalo, though? Do you think that this team needs to change something massive within the organization, or do you think that they're going to forever lack culture and have just been a losing team for too long and that will never change? All right, and with all of that being said, let's get into my power rankings from this past week. This is not the top 5 teams in the league, but the top 5 teams from this week in the NHL. At number 1, we have the Winnipeg Jets, 8-2-0 in their last 10 games, a plus 67 goal differential, and a very respectable home record that is going to be tough to beat if they get into the playoffs with that first seed. At number 2, give me the Ottawa Senators, 7-3-0 in their last 10 games, and doing that without their top goalie Linus Ullmark. Like I said, they've been blowing doors on teams these past couple of games, and I think that Ottawa right now is only just a couple points back from the Toronto Maple Leafs in the standings. So Ottawa is looking like a serious playoff team this year and finally living up to their potential. So that's great for the Sens, and I'm going to give them a little credit here by putting them at number 2. Next up, we have the Washington Capitals. They could easily be number 2 or number 1. I feel like these 3 teams are pretty interchangeable for how they've been playing these past couple of weeks. Ovi continues to stay hot, 17 goals away from breaking the record. They got a plus 56 on the season, a home record of 17-4-5, and they continue to stay hot, so they're going to be within the top 5 of this week's power rankings. Then I got to go ahead and toss the New York Islanders on here. Like I said, I know that they're not the best team, but as of late, they've been one of the hottest NHL franchises, 8-2-0 in their last 10, and hopefully with this Barzal thing, they can still continue to stay on this trend if they want to make the playoffs. But I think that's going to be difficult without your best player and already being less of an offensive team, but we'll just have to see how that goes. And last but not least, give me the Detroit Red Wings. Not a top 5 team in the league, but this past week, 7-1-2, going on a crazy stretch. Would love to see their goal differential go up a bit. They're -8 right now in the season, which isn't going to be sustainable for the playoffs, but still an impressive run for this team. And that shootout goal by Patty Kane, boy, it just doesn't get better than that. But those are my power rankings for the week, and this is everything that happened in this past week for the NHL. Let me know what you guys think about all of these topics, and like I said last week, if you guys enjoy this format and want to add some more stuff to it, go ahead and make some recommendations in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure you like this one and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. I will see you guys in the next episode.